Hey, so in our last video, I kind of set up some very basic proofing documents and did some testing with Font Bakery. Uh, I'm going to actually mark up the proofing documents that I printed out, and I'm trying something a little new, which is using like the iPhone continuity camera thing to hopefully record myself actually going through this proof and finding a few things and marking them up to fix. Looking at this, I'm probably too close to it to identify things that I want to change. I guess one thing that slightly jumps out to me is that the R has a bigger flat bit here than the N does. So that doesn't necessarily mean that I should change it, but it might angle this a little more to keep it more consistent. I obviously the other way I could go is to make the N more consistent with the R, but then that'd be less consistent with name sans, so I'll probably change the R. Another spot that I kind of notice at this scale at least is that the G gets kind of pinched. So I could maybe make that contrast a little more like the A, or the N honestly gets a little pinched as well. And there's a place where I'm not totally positive whether to allow it to have higher contrast than I sort of visually want at a large size, because I know that those spots at a very tiny sort of code size on a screen, like I probably want as much definition there as I can get, and so the tight pinching might be kind of a feature rather than a bug. Yeah, so it's funny. Again, these spacing strings feel kind of abstract for a monospace. I guess the X maybe feels a little bit narrow. The reason I say it feels a little abstract is that, like, of course, spacing is going to be a little wonky. In something proportional, you can more easily match up the sort of apparent space on the left and right side of things. Whereas in a mono, like I think I've mentioned a couple times, but for instance, I think a letter like V or C, if it gets wide enough to sort of make the spacing kind of look right, then the letter can look too wide. Same with like T or I. So yeah, sometimes like in context, you actually might want a little bit of a narrower letter for the space. But I'll definitely try out slightly wider letters to close up spacing a little more. The other thing is that sometimes it's about closing up the spacing, but maybe it's also about just nudging it over and letting the spacing be a little bigger. So in the F, for instance, it will look quite wide if I make it any wider. It already looks pretty wide compared to the H, but yeah, so potentially the F should just have a wider left margin than other straight-sided letters. Like, for instance, the M needs a lower side margin just so it has some space in the middle and like has enough definition. Yeah. The regular punctuation has been kind of fixed up by now. Well, this hasn't. This is a problem. For the most part, I like how the regular is working. I don't really notice any issues when I'm coding with it, which is a good thing. This, yeah, it's hard to tell at this scale. It's like too big, really. Maybe the quotes are like a little bigger than they have to be. Yeah, I don't know. I don't actually know what other typefaces do, but for instance, I wonder, this could get narrower, like that thing on the comma. I wonder in other typefaces if these single quotes are bigger than the quotes in the double quotes, and I bet they might be. Or maybe like bolder or something, because they have to fill a lot of space, and these naturally fill that space more. So we don't know, but that's the thing I'll kind of look into. And, you know, ultimately you have to decide for yourself what looks right or wrong in your own typeface, but it can be helpful to see other examples and react to what's happening rather than, I don't know, testing out every possibility in a void or a vacuum. Uh, yeah, gosh, I can very quickly tell that this style of proofing is not the most ergonomic because I'm like dodging the little camera tripod here and leaning forward over it. So, yeah, my back is gonna sort of hurt here a little bit. Being 32 is, I can't complain. I'm happy to be 32, but I'm weary. Okay. Sometimes a printout will be pretty confusing in that, like, hopefully this camera focuses better. I can't tell sometimes if, like, the I here is a thicker line stroke than the L. It kind of looks like it, and maybe the L looks a little thin. The only way to kind of guess at that is to look for the thing to repeat. And if it keeps happening, then you know it's not just like a little glitch in the in that section of the printing. And that's something I look for spacing as well. And by the way, that is a reason it's helpful to print out the letters larger, so you can kind of mark down things to fix, and also maybe check them. But yeah, at the end of a proof, this can be, when you mark it up, can be a useful document to kind of have as a bit of a to-do list almost. Yeah, I mean the M looks weird, but I should potentially have smaller text to really tell. If I do this, well, when I do this proof again, I might do it at a smaller size. Yeah, it feels slightly abstract sometimes, but it's helpful to see these things. Especially for a font that somebody else is making, it takes me a few minutes when I'm looking at a proof to start to actually see things that I feel might be possible to improve. And I think that's even more, well, I don't know. I wonder if I'm like a little too close to it or something. I don't know. I'll keep moving forward and might find some more things. Well, I'm sure I will find some more things. Okay. Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to test. I think it probably does make sense to, well, certainly to test. I think I already have tested this, so I don't know. But the Y should potentially come up in like a right angle here. That'd be interesting, especially when we look at what I'm doing here with the F and the J, but also kind of the way I've abstracted the X a little bit. I think it might actually call for giving this a right angle, even though that would be a divergent choice when compared to name sans italic. But that's okay. I kind of think these should be related, but not in a simplistic way. Like they couldn't be. I currently think they can and should be a little bit unique and their own sort of thing. Because I think that what makes a monospace good is different than what makes a sans serif good. Or maybe it's that they sort of have different purposes in my head. Like name sans is very much meant to be, as boring as it sounds, a workhorse grotesque. Just like meant for graphic design, branding, typography, and to be viewed at a larger scale. Whereas the coding font I want to make is not for that. I don't want to make name mono to be something for display that, you know, people, that is ideal for putting on a poster, but I want it to be more ideal for like the web and for development and how I use monospace fonts. I think of monospace fonts sometimes like an office chair or a keyboard, like something worth investing in for your personal workflow and ergonomics rather than, I mean, there's certainly a place for monospace fonts to, I think these haven't been adjusted yet. Certainly a place for monospace fonts that are more simplified and meant for display and graphic design use. But yeah, that's just not the one I want to make. Potentially, I could do an optical size axis on this at some point. I don't want to start with that though. I'm temporarily a little bit sick of making an optical size axis, even though I think it's like the best thing ever. It takes a lot more work than I suspect people necessarily notice. I don't know. Hard to say. At the same time, it's like it is one of the coolest and best parts of variable fonts, in my opinion. The fact that you can set a website in a font and it automatically goes to the right optical size for the current type size. That's just incredible and so cool. Yeah, honestly, I'll do another pass of all this stuff, but like, yeah. I just kind of need to do a quick pass first. And notably, this isn't the black weight I've been drawing on these videos. It is the bold weight, so it's an interpolation kind of partway between the black and regular. So, that is to say, things that I see here that are worth fixing will actually mean potentially fixing them in either or both the black and the regular styles. Alright, so just like know that I haven't done these things yet. So that's easy enough. What is even here? Oops. Oh, quotes, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. This is almost pointless to circle these things because, like, I haven't taken a single pass at them yet. And I know that that's my next step. Yeah, thrilling content, I'm sure. Oh, I guess here again, maybe. The G could probably be a bit more popped out there, a little thicker, perhaps. I can't decide if the S is too light or if it needs to be this light. It probably needs to be this light. Or that is to say, it needs to be this thinned out, but I don't know. Maybe it could be a little thicker. These are kind of different. More than I want them to be. The amount of contrast there feels different. Again, this maybe feels a bit light. Looks like a bit much there. Yeah, this is kind of a funny exercise in terms of mono. It's a lot more obvious what problems exist in a proportional font. Yeah, this stuff. I feel like the the 0 gets way too thin here, but I probably have to decompose the non-stroke 0 to keep it light enough to make it work, which is fine. I might just have to have a separate 0 if people want a non/0. I don't know if that's even an option that should be available in a monospace. Maybe. Just, it's so important to differentiate the 0 and the O that monospaces almost always have like a dot or a slash in the 0, which is pretty nice. But I don't know how many of them have. I don't even remember if what I did for recursive, whether there's a 0 without the there's the sans 0, and I don't think that has a slash in it, but I don't quite remember actually at the moment. It's possible it does have a slash. All right, well, yeah, I don't know. I guess I knew that I wanted to go through this, and I'm kind of in the mode of trying to record steps on this typeface, and share them, just so it can be a slightly complete-ish look at least one part of the type design process. Can't decide if the C looks a little light. Maybe. Not that it... Yeah, I bet it is possible and maybe helpful to thicken up a little bit over here. These guys. All right, well, that's plenty to work on. And I mean, I mostly know that the things I really want to work on, other than those little tweaks, are the punctuation and numerals. You can see that these numerals are a little too wide for their space. So, like, it's very close in here, whereas like a double O has this much space, the 0 has a lot less. And yeah, that's just because I haven't adjusted them in the black weight and made them a little more narrow yet. But yeah, to be continued.